The luminous drift. Nikolai Vega stared at the security monitor, watching dust particles dance in the holographic display. 6 months alone on Outpost Helios 12 had taught him the subtle art of finding entertainment in nothing. The remote station, positioned in the desolate region between the Cygnus arm and nowhere particular, served as an early warning system for solar flares and passing ships, both equally rare in this forgotten corner of space. "Security sweep complete," announced Vera, the station's artificial intelligence, in a voice program to sound encouraging but coming across as patronizing after months of isolation. No anomalies detected for the 342nd consecutive day. "Thrilling," Nikolai muttered, running a hand through his unkempt dark hair. He swiveled in his chair, boots scraping against the metal flooring. "How about a game of chess?" "Your current win rate against my programming is 17%, Vera replied. "Would you like me to adjust difficulty parameters?" "No," he sighed, rising from his station. "Keep it challenging. That's all I've got out here." Nikolai moved to the narrow viewport, pressing his forehead against the cold plexiglass. Stars stretched endlessly before him, pinpricks of ancient light traveling across unimaginable distances only to end their journey against his tired eyes. Sometimes he wondered if he'd made the right choice accepting this assignment. Triple pay for isolation duty had seemed worth it after his messy breakup with Talia, but the silence had grown from comforting to oppressive. "Incoming transmission from Earth Colonial Administration," Vera announced. "Monthly psychological evaluation." "Decline," Nikolai said automatically. "Tell them I'm sleeping. Schedule for tomorrow." "That would be your third rescheduling this month." "Then I must be very tired." He pushed away from the viewport and headed toward the small galley. "I'm making coffee. Real coffee, not that synthetic stuff. Using your personal supply is inadvisable. You have 4 months remaining on your assignment." Nikolai ignored the AI's practicality. Small rebellions kept him sane out here. He measured the precious grounds carefully, savoring the earthy scent as it filled the cramped kitchen space. Coffee beans were a luxury this far from Earth's colonies, but they were his one concession to homesickness. The subtle alarm nearly made him drop the canister. "Alert," Vera stated, her tone shifting to something more urgent. "Unidentified object detected in grid sector 9. Moving on degrading trajectory." Nikolai abandoned his coffee ritual and rushed back to the command console. "Show me." The monitor flickered, zooming in on a distant shape tumbling through the void. It wasn't large, perhaps the size of a small shuttle, but its design was unlike anything in the colonial registry. The hull appeared to be made of overlapping plates that caught the distant starlight in ways that seemed almost organic, refracting purplish-blue luminescence. "Object appears to be a vessel of unknown origin," Vera continued. "Power signature fading. Impact with asteroid field imminent in approximately 47 minutes." Nikolai's fingers flew across the console, scanning for life signs. "Any crew?" "One biosignature detected. Weak and fluctuating." Protocol was clear: unknown vessels were to be reported and monitored from a distance until Colonial Authority vessels arrived. Especially in this sector, where territorial disputes with the Centauri Concordance had increased tensions. "How long would it take for the nearest colonial ship to respond?" he asked, already knowing the answer. "Nearest patrol vessel is 17 hours from current position." Nikolai stared at the slowly tumbling ship. 17 hours. By then, the vessel would be nothing but scattered debris, and whoever was inside. He shook his head, decision already made. "Prep the rescue shuttle," he ordered, standing up. "And file the standard notification to Colonial Command. Standard notification requires you to remain at your post until." "File the notification, Vera," Nikolai cut in, already moving toward the equipment locker. "Then help me save whoever's in that ship." 20 minutes later, Nikolai piloted the small rescue shuttle through the darkness, keeping his eyes fixed on the damaged vessel. Up close, it was even stranger. The hull material seemed almost alive, pulsing faintly with internal light that was slowly fading like a heartbeat growing weaker. Maintaining minimum safe distance, he muttered to himself, circling the craft. Looking for entry points. The vessel rotated slowly, revealing a fissure along what appeared to be its lateral hull. Something had struck it with considerable force, leaving a wound-like opening that glowed with the same ethereal light as the rest of the ship. "Vera, can you get any readings from inside?" Nikolai asked, his voice echoing in his helmet. "Limited data available," came the AI's response through his comm. "Atmosphere inside the vessel is breathable but thin. Temperature significantly below human comfort level. The biosignature is weakening." Nikolai maneuvered the shuttle closer, lining up with the damaged section. "I'm going in." The docking was more of a controlled collision, the rescue shuttle's magnetic clamps securing to the alien hull with a dull thud that reverberated through both vessels. Nikolai cycled the airlock and stepped into the vacuum between ships, tethered only by a safety line and the portable life support pack on his back. The alien material felt warm beneath his gloved hand as he pulled himself into the breach. His helmet lights illuminated a corridor that seemed to absorb and redirect the beam in unexpected ways. The walls were lined with what looked like veins of luminous fluid that pulsed irregularly, growing dimmer with each cycle. "The ship is dying," he realized aloud. "Clarify observation," Vera requested through his comm. "It's biological," Nikolai said, moving carefully through the passage. "Or partly biological. The ship itself is alive somehow." He followed the weakening pulses deeper into the vessel. The interior architecture defied conventional design, spaces flowed organically into one another without clear delineation between functional areas. Surfaces that appeared solid from one angle revealed themselves to be translucent from another. Everything glowed with the same fading light. Then he saw her. In what he assumed was the command center, a figure lay curled beside a crystal-like structure. She was humanoid but clearly not human, tall and slender with skin the color of twilight, a deep indigo that shimmered with subtle patterns beneath its surface. Long silver-white hair framed features that were both alien and hauntingly beautiful. Nikolai approached slowly, medical scanner in hand. "Found the pilot," he reported. "Unconscious, severe injuries to thoracic area." The scanner beeped uncertainly, struggling to interpret the alien physiology. "Vera, can you make sense of these readings?" "Limited comparison available with Xenobiology database," the AI responded. "Subject appears to share similarities with rumors of the Luminar species. Metabolic rate critically low. Core temperature dropping." Nikolai knelt beside the alien woman. A crystalline fragment had embedded itself in her side, pulsing weakly with the same light as the ship. Each pulse seemed to draw more color from her skin, leaving behind areas of ashen gray. "The ship and the pilot are connected somehow," he muttered, scanning the crystal. "This fragment, it's draining her." With careful fingers, he examined the wound. The crystal seemed to have broken off from the larger structure nearby, perhaps during whatever impact had damaged the ship. Acting on instinct, Nikolai gently removed the fragment. The moment it left her body, the alien woman gasped, her back arching. The ship around them shuddered, and the pulsing lights flared briefly before dimming further. Nikolai quickly applied emergency medical sealant to the wound, the biofoam expanding to close the injury. "I need to get her back to the station," he said, gathering the slender form in his arms. She was lighter than he expected, almost weightless. "Vera, prepare the medical bay." As he lifted her, the alien woman's eyes fluttered open briefly, eyes like liquid silver with no discernible pupil or iris, just radiant pools that seemed to see through him. Her hand moved feebly, fingers brushing against his helmet. In that instant, Nikolai's vision swam. Stars exploded behind his eyes, not the cold distant points of light he knew, but living, dancing things that sang in voices he could almost understand. He saw crystal cities floating among clouds, beings of light moving in complex patterns, and felt an overwhelming sense of connection to something vast and ancient. Then it was gone, leaving him gasping inside his helmet. Nikolai, Vera's voice cut through his disorientation. Your vital signs are spiking. Report status. I'm fine, he managed, still holding the alien woman. Her eyes had closed again, but her breathing seemed stronger. Let's get out of here. The journey back through the dying ship felt longer, his awareness heightened to every fading pulse of light around him. When they finally reached the shuttle, Nikolai secured the alien woman in the emergency transport cocoon, initiating the stasis field to stabilize her condition. As they detached from the alien vessel, Nikolai looked back through the viewport. The beautiful, wounded craft gave one final pulse of light, brighter than before, then went dark, drifting silently into the asteroid field beyond. Back at Outpost Helios 12, Nikolai worked feverishly, converting the station's small medical bay for xenobiological support. Vera assisted with what limited information the database contained about similar physiologies, but most of it was guesswork and intuition. Her cellular structure is regenerating, Vera noted after several hours. Remarkable recovery rate once separated from the crystal fragment. Nikolai nodded tiredly, watching the alien woman's chest rise and fall beneath the medical scanner. Her color had improved, the ashen patches receding, replaced by the deep indigo that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. Colonial Authority has acknowledged your transmission, Vera added. They are dispatching a xenobiology team. Estimated arrival, 16 days. 16 days, Nikolai repeated, leaning back in his chair beside the recovery bed. Well, at least we have time to get to know each other if she wakes up. When, Vera corrected. Her neural activity is increasing. Consciousness likely within the next 12 hours. Nikolai studied the alien woman's face. Despite the obvious differences, the luminescent patterns beneath her skin, the slightly elongated features, there was something profoundly familiar about her. Something that had resonated when their eyes had met briefly. I wonder who you are, he murmured. And how you ended up out here, all alone in the darkness. He didn't expect an answer, but her lips parted slightly, and a single word escaped in a voice like crystal chimes. Lyra. When Nikolai woke, slumped uncomfortably in the chair beside the medical bed, silver eyes were watching him. He jerked upright, momentarily startled before collecting himself. You're awake, he said simply. The alien woman, Lyra, inclined her head slightly. As are you, Soul Tether. Her voice had an unusual resonance, as if each word contained harmonics beyond human hearing. My name is Nikolai, he replied. Nikolai Vega. I found your ship drifting toward an asteroid field. Yes. She raised one slender hand, studying the medical sensors attached to her wrist with quiet curiosity. I remember darkness. Then light. Then you. She looked up, meeting his gaze directly. You removed the fragment. Nikolai nodded. It seemed to be hurting you. It was a navigation crystal, she explained. When my vessel was damaged, it fractured. The shard sought connection with the nearest compatible life force, me. A flicker of something like sadness crossed her features. My ship? I'm sorry. It went dark shortly after I brought you aboard my shuttle. Lyra closed her eyes briefly. Then the journey bond is severed. It has returned to the cosmic current. Nikolai leaned forward. Your ship was alive. All things are alive, Nikolai Vega. Some simply express it differently. She attempted to sit up, and he moved quickly to assist her, supporting her back as she adjusted to the vertical position. The moment his hand touched her bare skin where the medical gown gaped, that same strange vision flashed through his mind, crystal cities, beings of light, an overwhelming sense of connection. Lyra gasped softly, her eyes widening. You feel it too, she whispered. The soul tether. Nikolai withdrew his hand, confused. What are you talking about? What happened when I touched you? Lyra regarded him with an expression of wonder and concern. Among my people, the Luminar, there are moments when life and non-life intersect, threshold moments. When you removed the crystal fragment, I was at such a threshold, between existence and non-existence. She reached out slowly, her fingers hovering near his face without touching. In saving me at that precise moment, you created a bond, what we call a soul tether. A bond? Nikolai repeated. What kind of bond? One recognized by the oldest energies of the universe, Lyra said simply. Our life forces have become entangled. Connected. She tilted her head, studying his reaction. This troubles you. It's unexpected, he managed, running a hand through his hair. I was just doing my job. Helping someone in trouble. Intention doesn't alter the tether, she replied. The universe doesn't concern itself with our plans or protocols. Vera chose that moment to interrupt. Nikolai, the patient's vital signs have stabilized significantly. Would you like me to update colonial authority? Lyra's expression changed, a wariness entering her silver eyes. Others are coming. A xenobiology team, Nikolai explained. Standard procedure when we encounter new species. And what is their standard procedure with my kind? She asked, her voice cooling. Nikolai hesitated. He knew how these things typically went, endless tests, debriefings, diplomatic negotiations that treated new species as resources rather than people. And something about the way Lyra spoke of her people suggested they were not unknown, merely, deliberately separate. Vera, delay that update, he said finally. Tell them the patient's condition is still critical and that we need more time before transport is advisable. That contradicts medical readings, the AI pointed out. Override. Security Protocol 7 Alpha. There was a pause before Vera responded. Acknowledged. Update delayed by 48 hours. Lyra watched this exchange with obvious interest. You're protecting me. Why? Nikolai wasn't entirely sure himself. Let's just say I've seen how first contact situations can go. I'd rather you be at full strength before dealing with bureaucrats and scientists who see you as a specimen. A soft smile curved her lips. The soul tether already influences you, though you do not understand it yet. Or maybe I'm just a decent person, he countered. Perhaps both can be true. Lyra carefully swung her legs over the side of the bed, her movements graceful despite her recent injuries. The medical gown shimmered against her indigo skin as she straightened to her full height, several inches taller than Nikolai. I must return to my people, she said simply. And because of the soul tether, you must come with me. Nikolai blinked. I can't just leave my post. I have responsibilities, contracts. As do I, she interrupted gently. But the tether takes precedence. Among the Luminar, such bonds are sacred, beyond duty or obligation. She stepped closer, and despite himself, Nikolai felt drawn to her presence. My people will be searching for me. When they discover I live, and am bonded, they will come. It would be better if we met them on our terms. Nikolai looked around the small station that had been his prison and refuge for 6 long months. What was he defending out here anyway? Empty space. Corporate interests. And compared to the mystery of Lyra and her people. I need to think about this, he said finally. Lyra nodded. Of course. The tether cannot be forced, only acknowledged. She glanced around the medical bay. While you consider, perhaps you could show me your world. This small piece of it, at least. Nikolai found himself smiling despite the bizarre situation. Would you like that coffee I was making when I found you? Coffee, she repeated, the word sounding exotic in her melodic voice. It's bitter and wonderful, he said, leading her toward the station's common area. Like most worthwhile things in human experience. As they walked, he couldn't help noticing how the station's lights seemed to brighten slightly in her presence, as if responding to some energy she carried within her. Whatever this soul tether was, whatever it meant, he had 48 hours to figure it out before colonial authority came looking for answers he wasn't sure he wanted to give. Celestial convergence. The Luminar vessel materialized like a dream taking physical form, a sweeping construct of crystalline surfaces and living light that dwarfed Nikolai's stolen shuttle. He'd made his decision 3 days ago, disabling Vera's communications array and departing with Lyra before Colonial Authority's xenobiology team arrived. Now, approaching the coordinates she had provided, he faced the consequences of that choice. "It's beautiful," he whispered, gazing through the viewport at the ship that seemed to swim through the darkness rather than simply move through it. Lyra stood beside him, now dressed in a flowing garment synthesized from the shuttle's fabricator. Though made of standard polymers, against her indigo skin it appeared otherworldly. The Celestial Anthem, she named the vessel. A Guardian-class ship. "They've been searching for me." The shuttle's communications array crackled to life without Nikolai activating it. A melodic voice filled the cabin, speaking in a language that sounded like water flowing over crystal. Lyra responded, her voice taking on new harmonics that the shuttle's simple speaker strained to reproduce. "What did you tell them?" Nikolai asked when the exchange ended. "The truth," she replied simply. "That I live, and that I am soul tethered to a human who saved me at the threshold moment." She touched his arm gently. "They are surprised." Before he could respond, a beam of shimmering light enveloped their shuttle. Nikolai felt weightlessness, then a strange sensation of being unmade and remade, not unpleasant, but profoundly disorienting. When the light faded, they stood in a vast chamber unlike anything human architecture had conceived. The floor beneath them was solid yet seemed to breathe. Walls curved organically into a domed ceiling that displayed not the void of space but what appeared to be an entire galaxy in miniature, stars wheeling in slow, deliberate patterns. The air carried scents of something like cinnamon and ozone, invigorating and alien. Lyra stepped forward, and Nikolai noticed for the first time that they were not alone. A semicircle of tall figures watched them, luminar like Lyra, but with variations in their indigo skin tones and the patterns that shimmered beneath. Some had hair of spun silver, others of pale gold or even deeper blue-black that seemed to contain pinpoints of light like embedded stars. One stepped forward, older perhaps, though Nikolai couldn't be sure how age manifested in their species. When he spoke, his voice resonated with authority. "I am Theron, voice of the Celestial Anthem. Lyra of the Crystal Harmony, we mourned your passing. Yet here you stand, returned from the threshold, and bound." His silver eyes shifted to Nikolai. "To this human." Nikolai fought the urge to step back under that penetrating gaze. Instead, he straightened his shoulders and maintained eye contact. "My name is Nikolai Vega. I found Lyra's damaged vessel and brought her to safety." Theron circled them slowly, his movements fluid and measured. "At the threshold moment." "Yes. The universe has curious ways of binding destinies." He stopped, facing Nikolai directly. "Do you understand what you have initiated, human? The soul tether is not a casual connection in our culture. It is sacred, permanent, recognized by forces older than either of our civilizations." "I'm beginning to understand," Nikolai replied carefully. "But I acted only to save a life, not to create a bond." A ripple of musical sounds, laughter perhaps, moved through the assembled luminar. Theron's expression softened marginally. "Intention rarely matters in the great patterns," he said. "Actions cast ripples that extend beyond our understanding." He turned to Lyra. "The question remains, what shall be done with this unprecedented tether? No luminar has bonded outside our species in 7,000 years." Lyra stood tall, her luminescence brightening slightly. "The ancient laws are clear, Theron. The tether must be honored with the convergence ritual. There is no alternative path." Murmurs spread through the gathering. Nikolai leaned closer to Lyra. "What's the convergence ritual?" "The formal recognition of our bond," she explained quietly. "A 7-day ceremony that aligns our energies permanently." "Permanently?" he echoed, sudden doubt flooding through him. Theron observed their exchange with interest. The human seems uncertain, Lyra. Perhaps he wishes to sever the tether. Lyra's glow dimmed noticeably. Is that your desire, Nikolai? You should know, severing is possible, but painful. Many do not survive the process intact. The chamber had gone silent, all eyes upon him. Nikolai felt the weight of their expectation, their judgment. He had left everything behind, his post, his career, his world, on an impulse he still didn't fully understand. Yet when he looked at Lyra, something resonated deep within him, something that transcended rational thought. I don't want to sever anything, he said finally. But I need to understand what I'm agreeing to. On Earth, we have a saying, look before you leap. Theron nodded solemnly. Wisdom exists in many forms across the stars. Very well. Before the convergence begins, you will be granted 3 cycles to learn of our ways. Lyra will guide you. He gestured, and the gathered Luminar dispersed, leaving only Theron with them. Know this, Nikolai Vega, once begun, the convergence cannot be halted without grave consequences to both tethered souls. With that warning delivered, Theron departed, leaving Nikolai alone with Lyra in the vast chamber. I'm sorry, she said after a moment. I should have explained more fully before we arrived. Nikolai ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit from childhood. It's a lot to process. On Earth, people usually date for a while before anything permanent. A smile touched her lips. Date? Spend time together. Get to know each other. See if they're compatible. The tether forms only between compatible souls, she said simply. The universe is more efficient than human courtship rituals. Despite everything, Nikolai laughed. I'm not sure efficiency should be the goal when it comes to matters of the heart. Heart, she repeated, placing her slender hand over the center of her chest. Yes, your people locate emotion there. We believe it resides in the entire being, every cell remembers, every particle feels. Her words triggered another flash of that strange vision, crystal cities, beings of light, profound connection. This time, Nikolai didn't resist it. He let the sensation flow through him, and for a brief moment, he felt what she described, awareness that extended beyond his physical form, touching something greater. Show me, he said suddenly. Show me your world, your ways. If I'm going to leap, I want to know where I might land. Her luminescence brightened with obvious pleasure. Then come, soul tether. Let us begin. The days that followed were a kaleidoscope of revelations. Lyra showed him the celestial anthem in its entirety, a living vessel that housed over 300 luminar in environments that merged technology and biology so seamlessly that Nikolai couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. He learned that the luminar had visited Earth millennia ago, appearing in the myths of many cultures as beings of light and wisdom before retreating from human civilization as it grew more volatile. They maintained outposts throughout the galaxy but largely kept to themselves, preserving their ancient ways. On the 3rd day, Lyra brought him to what she called the memory chamber, a circular room where the walls themselves recorded and displayed history. Here, he witnessed the last soul tether between a luminar and another species, 7,000 years earlier. She was a philosopher from the Airland civilization, Lyra explained as the images flowed around them, a being with features like a lioness but standing upright, her fur shimmering with the same luminescence that characterized the luminar. Their world is dust now, but their wisdom lives on in our archives. What happened to them? The bonded pair. They lived together for 3 centuries, Lyra said. The tether extended the Airland's natural lifespan significantly. When she finally passed beyond the threshold, her luminar partner followed within a day. The tether does not permit one to exist long without the other, once fully formed. Nikolai absorbed this information with growing wonder and trepidation. So if we complete this convergence ritual, our lives become interlinked, she confirmed. You would gain some of our longevity, our perception. I would become more attuned to human emotion, human experience. And if one of us dies, the other would soon follow. That is the nature of true convergence. Nikolai turned away, staring at the shifting images of history's long past. That's a heavy commitment for someone who only met you a week ago. By your linear time measurement, yes, Lyra acknowledged. But the tether exists outside conventional time. In a sense, our souls have recognized each other across a much vaster expanse. She approached him slowly, standing close enough that he could feel the subtle warmth her body emanated. The question is not whether we know each other well enough, she continued softly. But whether you can accept what you already feel, what formed the moment you pulled the crystal from my side and stood with me at the threshold. Nikolai closed his eyes, focusing on the sensation that had been growing stronger each day, that strange resonance when she was near, the feeling of completion he had never experienced before. If I say yes, he murmured, what happens next? The convergence begins at the next rising of the radiant star, what you would call tomorrow. We would enter the bonding chamber together and remain there for 7 cycles as the tether strengthens and stabilizes. And if I say no? Her voice grew quieter. Then the separation ritual would be performed. It is painful, but possible. You would return to your life, though changed. I would remain with my people, similarly altered. Nikolai opened his eyes and found her watching him, her silver gaze holding no judgment, only quiet acceptance of whatever choice he might make. In that moment, he realized something profound. She was as unsure as he was, as overwhelmed by the cosmic coincidence that had brought them together. This isn't just about me, is it? He asked suddenly. This affects your standing among your people too. A fleeting expression of surprise crossed her features. Yes. To be tethered to a non-luminar is uncommon. Some will question the wisdom of it, particularly given my lineage. Your lineage? She hesitated. My maternal ancestor was the voice of memory for 12 generations. My path was to follow hers eventually. A soul tether to a human complicates that destiny. You never mentioned this before. It was not relevant to your decision, she said simply. The tether exists. My personal considerations should not influence your choice. Nikolai laughed softly, shaking his head. That's where you're wrong, Lyra. They absolutely should. He stepped closer, cautiously raising his hand to her face. May I? She nodded once, and he gently touched her cheek. The now familiar vision washed over him, but this time he pushed deeper into it, seeking understanding rather than simply experiencing the sensation. In that moment of connection, he glimpsed her truth, her fear of disappointing her lineage, her wonder at finding herself tethered to a being so different from herself, her genuine fascination with him that transcended cultural obligation. And beneath it all, a growing warmth that mirrored his own. Tomorrow, he said as the vision faded, his hand still against her cheek. We begin tomorrow. The bonding chamber was smaller than Nikolai had expected, perhaps twice the size of his quarters on outpost Helios 12. Its walls curved inward to form a dome overhead, but unlike the grand chamber where they'd first arrived, this ceiling displayed not stars but something like the aurora borealis, sheets of colored light that shifted and danced in slow patterns. The floor was soft beneath his feet, giving slightly with each step, and the entire space pulsed with gentle light that seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. A small pool of luminescent liquid occupied the center of the room, its surface perfectly still, reflecting the dancing lights above. It responds to us, Lyra explained, gesturing to the changing patterns of light. To our emotional states, our energy. She had changed into a ceremonial garment that seemed to be made of living light itself, flowing around her form like water. Nikolai wore a similar robe provided by the luminar, though on him it looked less natural, more like a costume than an extension of himself. What happens now? He asked, his voice hushed in the intimate space. Now we begin, she said simply. The first cycle is for stillness and reflection. They sat across from each other beside the glowing pool, cross-legged on the yielding floor. In the silence that followed, Nikolai found his thoughts drifting, sifting through memories of his life before this moment, his childhood in the Eastern European collective, his academy years, failed relationships, the isolation of outpost Helios 12. He had always been searching for something, though he couldn't have named it until now. Connection, perhaps. Not just to another person, but to something larger than himself. The lights above them shifted, responding to his thoughts, forming patterns that reminded him of neural networks, of vast cosmic webs connecting distant points. "You're contemplating connection," Lyra observed. "I can see it in the light." "Is that what this is about?" he asked. "The soul tether, the convergence, is it just about not being alone?" "It's deeper than companionship," she replied thoughtfully. "My people believe that consciousness itself is fragmentary, pieces of a greater awareness temporarily housed in separate vessels. The tether is recognition, two fragments that once belonged together finding each other across the vast expanse of existence." "Soulmates," Nikolai murmured. "A human concept with similar resonance, yes." As the hours passed, the silence between them grew comfortable. They shared small sips of a shimmering liquid from the pool, nectar, Lyra called it, that tasted of something like honey and starlight, if starlight had a flavor. It heightened Nikolai's awareness, making the bond between them more tangible, a gossamer thread of energy that he could almost see stretching from his chest to hers. The second cycle brought movement. Lyra taught him the formal patterns of the convergence dance, slow, deliberate gestures that mirrored the flow of energy between them. Their hands never quite touched, moving in parallel, creating shapes in the air that the chamber's light responded to, forming intricate mandalas overhead. "The body remembers what the mind forgets," she explained as they moved. "These patterns are written into the oldest parts of consciousness." On the third cycle, they rested, lying side by side on the yielding floor as the aurora above them intensified, casting their faces in shifting hues of blue and violet and gold. "Tell me about Earth," Lyra requested. "Not its politics or history, those I can learn from databases. Tell me what it feels like to be human there." Nikolai thought for a moment. "It feels contradictory. We build incredible things and destroy them just as easily. We love fiercely and hurt each other constantly. We stare at the stars and dream of something more, then get distracted by the smallest trivialities." He turned his head to look at her. "What does it feel like to be luminar?" "To be luminar is to exist in multiple awareness states simultaneously," she replied. "We perceive the physical world as you do, but also the energetic undercurrents, the memories embedded in matter, the connections between seemingly disparate things. It can be overwhelming at times. That's why we maintain separation from younger species. Their chaotic energy patterns are difficult for us to filter." "Is mine chaotic to you?" She smiled. "Less each cycle. The tether harmonizes us. Your patterns become more coherent to me, and I suspect mine become more comprehensible to you." It was true, Nikolai realized. The strange visions that had come in flashes when they first met now flowed more smoothly, more integrated with his normal perception. He was beginning to see the world as she did, layered, interconnected, alive with significance. The fourth cycle brought revelation. They sat facing each other across the luminous pool, hands extended, palms hovering inches apart. "Now we share truth," Lyra said solemnly. "The tether requires complete knowing." As their palms aligned without touching, Nikolai felt the barrier between their minds dissolve. Her memories flowed into him, centuries of life among the stars, the weight of her lineage's expectations, moments of rebellion and conformity, joy and solitude. He experienced her first sight of his human form in the dying ship, felt her recognition of something familiar in a strange face, her wonder at the improbability of their meeting. In turn, he knew she was receiving his memories, his childhood losses, his brief moments of glory and longer periods of doubt, his growing isolation and the emptiness he tried to fill with duty. He felt naked, exposed, yet strangely unafraid. There was no judgment in her reception of his truth, only understanding. When the flow of memories finally ebbed, they sat in silence, tears streaming down Nikolai's face. Lyra's luminescence had intensified, pulsing in time with his heartbeat. "Now you know me," she whispered. "And you know me," he replied. The fifth cycle was for healing. The memories shared had opened old wounds in both of them. Together they lay half immersed in the luminous pool, the liquid light soothing the psychic abrasions left by a lifetime of joys and sorrows fully remembered. Nikolai felt lighter than he had in years, unburdened by secrets, by the constant need to present only his best self. Lyra knew everything now, his failures, his fears, his petty moments and his noble ones. And still, the tether held, growing stronger. The sixth cycle brought physical convergence. Their bodies moved together in the pool of light, skin against skin, breath mingling with breath. It was not like human intimacy, there was desire, yes, but also something transcendent, a merging that went beyond the physical. Nikolai felt his consciousness expanding, encompassing her as she encompassed him. The boundaries between them blurred, reformed, blurred again. He experienced the universe through her perception, vast, luminous, alive with meaning, while she tasted the intensity of human emotion through him, the sharp sweetness of physical sensation magnified by temporality. When they emerged from the pool, their skin had taken on similar luminescence, his now faintly glowing like hers now pulsing with his heartbeat. The tether between them was visible now, a golden cord of light that stretched and contracted but never broke as they moved. The seventh cycle was for integration. They sat in meditation, allowing the changes to settle into their beings. Nikolai could feel new awareness blooming within him, perception that extended beyond physical senses, connection to currents of energy that flowed through all matter. "What happens after this?" he asked as the final hours of the convergence approached. "Where do we go? What do we do?" Lyra smiled, her face radiant with combined light. "We choose. Together. The universe opens to tethered souls in ways it does not for others. We might remain with my people for a time, or explore the stars, or even return to Earth if you wish. The path unfolds according to our shared purpose." "And what is our purpose?" "That," she said, touching the place where the tether entered his chest, "we discover through living it." As the radiant star rose again, marking the end of the 7 cycles, the chamber's ceiling dissolved, revealing the actual stars above. The celestial anthem had positioned itself in orbit around a blue-white sun, its light bathing them as they emerged from the bonding chamber. The luminar had gathered to witness their completion, standing in concentric circles around the chamber entrance. Theron approached, his expression solemn but not displeased. "The convergence is complete," he announced. "What was begun in chance is now fulfilled in choice. 2 souls, now moving as one through the great pattern." Nikolai stood tall beside Lyra, feeling neither human nor luminar but something new, a hybrid consciousness that retained his humanity while expanding beyond it. The tether between them pulsed with golden light, visible to all now, a physical manifestation of the connection that had formed in that first moment of rescue. "What will you do now, Nikolai Vega?" Theron asked. "Will you remain among us, or seek your own path among the stars?" Nikolai looked at Lyra, their thoughts flowing easily between them now without need for words. She smiled, already knowing his answer. "We have a galaxy to explore," Nikolai replied. "And stories to gather. Perhaps one day, when we've found what we're looking for, we'll return, to the luminar, and to Earth. Until then." "Until then," Lyra continued, her hand finding his, "we follow the thread wherever it leads." As they stood together beneath the light of an alien sun, Nikolai thought of the lonely outpost where their journey had begun. He had sought isolation then, believing himself content with solitude. How strange that in the vast emptiness between stars, he had found the opposite, connection profound enough to transcend species, to bridge worlds. The universe, it seemed, had a peculiar sense of symmetry, and perhaps, just perhaps, a touch of poetry.